Hey, thanks for tuning in. We just got our soil report in, and we're going to be showing you how we amend our soil using the soil report to get things ready for spring planting. Let's get to it. So the first thing we're doing is we kind of mixed up all the soil that we had. We still have some chunks in here. We're just kind of breaking these things up, seeing, some of the roots. We're not pulling a lot of the roots out. We just wanted to get the big stuck stuff out. So if there's any root balls, we need to break those up and things like that. Kind of checking the density of it, see if we want to add any more compost, if we want to add any more drainage and things like that. Given that this is going to be outdoors and it performed pretty well for us last year, we're just going to kind of leave it as it is. And we'll leave some room for some nutrition from the compost, but we didn't get an assessment done on the compost, so we're going to just be mindful of how much we use and get a lot of our nutrition from our amendments, which we'll go over next. Instead of using complete fertilizers that you might find at like a nursery or a garden supply store, being like a mix of a bunch of fertilizers, we like to use single source. So things like gypsum, rock dust, cow phos, fish bone meal, basically single ingredient. Why? Because it gives us the ability to be a little bit more precise with what we're doing. And we'll go over individually what we're using, how we're using it, and what the purpose of it is for, as we're working on amending the soil, and give you guys a little bit more insight on these different products and things of that nature. So after reviewing our soil report, we've been able to identify some things that we are in need of, things like calcium, potassium, phosphorus, and nitrogen. We were pretty good on a lot of some of the other nutrients in the soil. And our pH is right where we want it to be. It's one of the reasons why we don't like using complete organic fertilizers that you might buy at a store that's in a bag, just because there might be things in there that may throw the soil off balance or create excesses, things like that. For instance, like if you were to use this fertilizer that had lime in it, which would increase the pH, which would also add calcium, which is what we need, but our pH isn't in range, so we want to keep this where it's at, in turn wanting to avoid things like lime or oyster shell for our specific situation here. So we want to run through how we are going to be amending the soil and things that we're kind of considering from top to bottom. So the first thing that we're looking at is our pH. So our pH was good. We want to make sure that we're not adding anything in that's going to be increasing the pH or decreasing the pH. We want to kind of keep things where it's at. So in other words, we want to use things that are not going to increase the pH of the soil. After that, the next thing that we're considering is calcium. Now, calcium we can find in a bunch of different products that will release over time, but for the sake of what we're trying to do, we want it to be available now. In turn, gypsum is a great form of soluble calcium that can be quickly released in the soil and help put things into balance. So for our calcium source, this is primarily what we're going to be utilizing is gypsum. Other things like oyster shell, lime, and things like that will also help increase the available calcium. But the issue that we run into is that it also increases the pH, which is what we want to minimize from happening. The next thing that we're addressing is potassium and magnesium. Magnesium, our soil has sufficiency for now. It may be something that we look into later on, but realistically, we could add something like Epsom salt and just spray it on the plants, and it'll be taken up. So it's something that we want to be mindful of not including too much of right now, and it's something that we can just kind of keep on the shelf and utilize kind of as needed, just because we want to make sure that we're helping the plant really push up calcium, and magnesium and potassium can compete with some of the space for with calcium. So that being said, we are adding in a very, very small amount of potassium sulfate just to help increase the available potassium, which helps with the water movement throughout the plant. And so we're, like I said, adding a little bit amount. You can also add in things like compost, which will typically be high in potassium, and we're going to leave some room, nutritionally speaking, for that, so we can put that in. After we've addressed calcium, potassium, and magnesium, now we're going to start looking at phosphorus. Now, our phosphorus levels were there. We had some already available, but we want to build up the reserve since it's something that doesn't release heavily in the soil. So we were using things like soft rock phosphate, which is calcium and phosphorus. And then we're also using our bone meal, which is high in phosphorus and nitrogen. So this will primarily be our nitrogen source, and depending on the nitrogen requirements of the crop, you can make adjustments and change out, let's say fish bone meal for something like bone meal, which will have less nitrogen in it, but still have high levels of phosphorus, which is what you're going to want to help you build kind of your reserves for the season. So once we've addressed those components, the next piece are minerals. So we're adding things in like rock dust, kelp meal, to increase the reserves for some of the trace minerals within the soil. We're not going to mess with some of the sulfate, let's say micronutrients, just because for the sake of this video and the level at what we're kind of speaking at, unless you have experience with it, it can kind of mess things up. So for right now, we're going to be playing with our minerals coming from these two things. So some kelp and some rock dust. Now that we've shared with you everything that we're going to be using for the soil, we went and took the time already to kind of measure everything out. And what we're going to do is we're going to be adding this stuff in. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to add in the nutrition and sufficiency into the soil, but then we have to make it available. And because these amendments are dry amendments, they are in a lot of it is non-soluble form. They have to become soluble in the soil. Well, the question is, how do we go about doing that? So we create a natural farming inoculant called indigenous microorganisms. This is going to be essentially our biology. You could also use compost, you could also use worm castings, and those things do add some nutrition to it. So like I said before, we're going a little bit lighter on our nutrition so we can leave a little bit of room for the compost, knowing that compost can provide a lot of potassium and some nitrogen and phosphorus and other minerals and micronutrients into the soil. So let's go ahead and add things in. Let's get it mixed in, and then we'll take it from there. So now that we got it essentially somewhat mixed in, we're going to let this sit for a little while, let it cook, see if it heats up, make sure that the temperature stays stable before we put anything in. We want these minerals to start breaking down. Nitrogen will start getting this thing to heat up, and we want to be mindful of putting roots into something that is hot or heating up, right? So we're going to give this a little bit, let it sit, maybe even water this in, add some moisture, and over the next couple of days, we're going to kind of monitor the temperature and be turning this a little bit, adding and mixing it, so that way the minerals, as they break down, can get thoroughly mixed. So to recap, basically we took our old soil, saved money by re-amending it, buying new potting soil. We added sufficient nutrition. We added biology to help cycle the nutrients. We have slightly acidic soil, so under 7 pH. And we are working towards balancing our cations, which is positively charged ions in the soil, like calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium. And once this stabilizes temperature-wise, we give it a couple of days to make sure it doesn't heat up. We'll be ready to plant, and nitrogen should be available within the next couple of weeks.